Hey, what's up? I wanted to challenge myself and see what kind of smart home I could build for $500 total. Let's go through a bunch of smart home categories and see devices and automations that work together. And stick with me because at the end it will all make sense. At least, I hope, because I wrote this video like 3 times. Okay, the first thing that you'll need to start thinking about is what hub you're going to go with. Or maybe you prefer no hub at all. Personally, I would get a hub because you can connect sensors to automate your smart devices. Plus, your smart home will be more reliable and surprisingly, you can actually save money. These things will make more sense as we go throughout the video, so don't worry about what hub to get just yet. And so you know, these are the hubs I'm going to show in this video. First, the Zigbee hub that's already built in the Echo 4th Gen. Next, the Aqara Gateway. And finally, more advanced hubs like AOTech or Home Assistant with a Zigbee Z-Wave USB stick. Oh, and don't let smart home words scare you like Z-Wave or Zigbee.
Oh, the Zigbee! Oh, the Zigbee!
Both of those are just mesh networks that use low power to connect to more devices than just Wi-Fi, like sensors. Sensors are extremely useful. You can do things like start playing music right when you walk into the kitchen in the morning. I use them for automating lights when I enter a room or when I open a cabinet. You can even have an automation to remind your kid to get ready for school in the morning if their contact sensor on their bedroom door hasn't opened in the morning yet.
Time to leave for school or else I will start saying dad jokes.
No, anything but that. Fine, I'll go to school.
What do you call someone that refuses to fart in public? A private tutor. Ha ha.
You could do all of these automations with an Echo using the Zigbee hub inside and an Amazon routine. Despite it being a Zigbee hub, there's not tons of sensor options that work with it, but the few that do work well. If you're wondering why some sensors are as massive as my AirPods Pro case, they actually have AAA batteries inside, and I like that since they're easy to replace. Besides these sensors, the Echo 4th Gen actually has a temperature sensor built in that can also trigger automations, as well as an ultrasound motion detection for occupancy. So you can run automations if someone's in the room or not. The Aqara system has a lot of sensors and they're pretty inexpensive, which is great for keeping your setup under $500. If you connect the motion or contact sensors to the Aqara Gateway, you can use them in Amazon routines with your other devices. But if you end up going with a more advanced hub like AOTech or Home Assistant, you have way more options. You can use any sensor that works with the Echo that I showed. You can even use the Aqara contact sensor directly with those hubs, and I love how small that sensor is. I use quite a few of these budget sensors around my house because they're inexpensive and they work well. But just know that the more you spend on sensors, the better they get. Longer battery life, improved accuracy, and extra sensors to track things like the temperature. Those better sensors mainly work with the more advanced hubs, so keep that in mind when you're planning out your setup. Alright, now on to smart lighting, which is by far the most used smart device in our house. Remember when I said that a hub could actually save you money? You probably didn't believe me. But let me show you how it can. Take this $5 Zigbee bulb from EcoSmart for example. Yes, you can get really inexpensive Wi-Fi smart bulbs these days, but with a hub, you can get even cheaper options like this. Plus, it has really good warm and cool whites and is more reliable than Wi-Fi. It works with the Zigbee hub in the Echo and of course more advanced hubs like SmartThings, but it does not work with the Aqara Gateway. In fact, I wouldn't count on any Zigbee device connecting to that gateway that is not Aqara branded. The EcoSmart bulb does not have RGB colors, and if you need that, there are some really good budget options from Casa, Wyze, and Sengled, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. When it comes to smart light switches, a hub can also save you money. If you have 3-way lights, it can get expensive to replace both of those switches. For example, the Casa 3-way dimmer switch kit is $50. Instead, with a hub, you can get a Zeus dimmer switch that can make 3 or 4-way lights smart with one switch. That will save you money since it's only $34. Plus, it's less work than replacing 2 switches. Just read the instruction manual multiple times, and you'll probably get it right on the 5th try like me. It uses Z-Wave and not Zigbee, and it works really well. The dimmer still works like this, and so does the other switch. If you want to automate a lot of ceiling lights and it's not a three-way switch, then I would go with Casa. Their dimmer switch is really good for the price. I've been using these connected to a motion sensor in my bathroom, and it turns on fast 9 times out of 10. Very rarely there will be a slight delay because it does use Wi-Fi and the cloud, but for me and probably most people it's not that big of a deal because it never disconnects and it's very compatible. There's also Shelly relays that go behind the physical light switch to make it smart. I prefer smart light switches, but these are budget friendly. With this $500 setup, you might not want to only rely on automations to control your smart home. That's where buttons come into play. They can change a lighting scene, quickly start playing music everywhere, or toggle some kind of virtual switch in your smart home. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a button that works with a Zigbee hub in the Echo. It seemed like the Sengled Zigbee wireless light switch would work. It did connect, but it couldn't do anything after that. Also, the Aqara mini switch doesn't trigger Amazon routines either. So if you're using the Echo or don't have a hub, I recommend the Broadlink button. You'll have to spend a few extra dollars on the required hub, but it can trigger Amazon routines. I have a few of them and it's worked great as a kid remote for the Fire TV and changing lighting scenes. If you have SmartThings, that Sengled wireless remote does work with it. You can even have the smart lights mirror the switch. It works okay, but I personally prefer IKEA's dimmer buttons that also connect directly with SmartThings or Home Assistant. These things are only $8 and I use them all over the place. They control fans, lights, smart shades, you name it. They're magnetic and you can program what a single press and a long press does. I love how useful these little guys are. To me, a video doorbell is essential for a smart home to be notified when a package is delivered or to run automations. And with a $500 budget, your options are limited, but it's crazy that you can get a Ring doorbell for just $60 now. Even though it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, it's very compatible with Amazon, SmartThings, and Home Assistant. Of course, there's the $3 monthly fees for recordings, so if you want to avoid those, you could spend a little bit more on a Eufy doorbell. If you submit an expense request to your spouse for a higher budget and it gets approved, then go for it. Their 2K battery doorbell is such a great budget option, but there's actually one that costs less and can record 24/7. It's only sold at Best Buy, so just be aware of that. Eufy has a new doorbell that I'm about to test out, and the specs are impressive, so keep an eye out for that one. Next for your $500 setup is an energy monitoring outlet. I've used these to run automations when the washing machine is finished or to know if the TV is on. Yeah, after all the comments from the last video, I finally added one to our frame TV. That way our motion sensor doesn't trigger the lights when we're watching a movie at night. I've always used SmartThings outlets, but they don't sell them anymore, so here are a few other good options. Sengled makes some that use Zigbee. They work great with SmartThings and are pretty affordable. They connect with the Zigbee hub in the Echo, but you cannot use the energy monitoring because it's not available in the Amazon app, so that was disappointing. There's also a Casa Wi-Fi energy monitoring outlet. It can be turned on and off in SmartThings, but the energy monitoring info does not show up. Now, if you're using Home Assistant, it does show up and it works great. Don't worry, I'll put links and what works with each setup in the description. There's a few last things I would get for this setup, and one is a Fire Stick 4K for TV automations. Using just Amazon routines, you can build that kid remote I showed earlier to start playing a show with a button press, or automatically display who pressed the doorbell on the TV. If you run Home Assistant, the Fire Stick opens up even more options. You can automatically turn up the lights by just hitting pause on the remote. You can also display notifications on the TV, which could be useful if it's late at night and you don't want to blast an announcement on the smart speaker. Speaking of which, the last thing I would get for this setup is a smart speaker if you don't already have one, which you probably do. And the best time to get them is on Prime Day or Black Friday because they're half off, so it might be worth waiting. So if it seems like the Zigbee hub and an Echo device will cover everything you need, here's an example of a $500 setup with everything we talked about. The pros to this setup is how simple everything is, and there's quite a bit you can do with just Amazon routines. You could also have a similar setup with the Aqara gateway using their sensors. I would consider Aqara if you were thinking about using HomeKit. For me, I prefer more device options to connect to the hub and more advanced automations. If you don't want things overly complex, then I still recommend the SmartThings AOTech hub. If you can snag one when it's available, that is. For that setup, this is an example of what I would get for about $500. If you're brave enough to try out Home Assistant, you have a couple of options. There's Home Assistant Yellow that's an all-in-one solution you can pre-order, or you can get a Raspberry Pi with a Zigbee Z-Wave stick right now. I asked you guys on Twitter what you recommended for inexpensive smart home tech. I included most of them, but I'm sure I missed some of the good affordable smart devices out there. I'll definitely be doing another budget video, so comment down below if you want me to test out anything, or if you have a favorite thing that doesn't break the bank. Thanks for watching. I just have some smart home expenses for you to approve. No big deal.
All right. Kohler bathtub, $14,000.
No, we need that.
No, that is way too much.
Okay, this has the voice assistant built in. I really want this.
That is so weird. I'm really sorry, but no.
Okay. You've always wanted a smart toilet.
Never. I've never.
Not that much.
What? Smart toilet?
Okay.
It's ridiculous.
You probably don't want this. It's a mop that will mop all the floors so you don't have to anymore.
Wait, what? Of course I want that, but $13,000?
No, it's $1,300. Like $1,400.
Really?